something just as I'm coordinating my conscious faculties, so that's the conscious subject. So there must be a universal subject who coordinates all the subjects, all the individual conscious subjects. This is intersubject. Does that mean that I'm trying to smuggle the idea of God into science? No. There's two aspects of the divine. According to Western point of view, there's the immanent and there's transcendent. Immanent means the way that God or whatever acts within this world. And then transcendent means God in his own realm. How the universal self acts within this world can be understood to some extent by means of our mind and senses and by logic. So it's not the same as God who lives outside the universe and is fundamentally beyond the range of our normal senses and our normal mind. So this is not a religious concept. It's a logically verifiable and experientially verifiable also entity. So, and this is in agreement with the Vedic viewpoint. The Vedic viewpoint is that Paramatma, just like this individual Atma, and then the Supreme Atma, Paramatma, this is the basis of everything in the world. It's the basis of the world itself, matter, and it's the basis of the individual existences, and also the basis of communities and relationships. Sometimes people think that the Vedas, or the Vedic wisdom, actually comes to an impersonal conclusion, that everything is the oneness. Especially the Upanishads. And many people think that the Upanishads basically point out an impersonal reality, and then later, like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, they talk about the individual self, but that's a more recent addition. This is not true, because the Upanishads also talk about person, Purush. I shall now inquire about the Supreme Personality who is revealed in the Upanishads. This is written in one of the Upanishads. Brahmanas study the Vedas to understand the Supreme Personality. Nothing is higher than the Supreme Person. The Supreme Person is the highest. So the Vedic view is that there is a universal personality, which is logically very reasonable. If we look at our own conscious experience, we see that it's quite reasonable to suppose that there is a universal consciousness which is a kind of substratum. It's a basis for our individual consciousness. For example, inspiration. Carl Gauss is a famous mathematician. He was working on a particular problem, and then suddenly an inspiration came to him. He said, like a sudden flash of lightning, the riddle happened to be solved. I myself cannot say what was the conducting thread which connected what I previously knew with what made my success possible. It just happened. It was given to him. Very, very abstruse and abstract solution just appeared in his consciousness. Another mathematician, Henri Poincaré, he was working on a problem for a long time, couldn't find the solution, and then one day he was going out on some field work and he got on a bus, and as he put his foot on the bus, he says, at the moment when I put my foot on the step, the idea came to me without anything in my former thoughts seeming to have paved the way for it. So inspiration, I mean, on very extremely high level, very abstruse, very abstract, what can be giving this inspiration other than an abstracting entity? A conscious entity. Then another example is dreams. When we dream, there's a kind of a dreamscape which has its own consistency. We can't say that we personally have created that dreamscape, because nobody wants nightmares, but nightmares happen. So it's not something we want for ourselves, but there's an internal consistency in our own dreams, and we know that there is symbolism in dreams, that the same symbols crop up in different people's dreams. They're meaningful. So that's another example of something which happens in consciousness, which appears to have been created. It's like a virtual reality. A dream is like a virtual reality which is created by consciousness. Another piece of evidence for the existence of universal self is mystical experience. Mystical experience meaning research has been done on mystical experience where somebody has direct perception of a connection with Supreme Being, Supreme Consciousness. So these people, you could say this is just imagination, but these people are not wacko or deranged. On the contrary, they have a higher level of psychological well-being than any other group in the population, either natural group or artificial group. So actually they have a higher level of psychological well-being even than scientists who are performing the research. So this indicates that actually this mystical experience, this mystical union or connection, corresponds to something which is very natural and necessary, in fact, for the self. This is another piece of evidence which tends to confirm the existence of a universal self. And then spiritual insight. By thought, understanding, I can understand clearly that I'm not this body. The body's moving. I'm moving the body, but I'm not the body. I'm the person who's moving the body. And I can actually realize, to the extent by meditation I can reach a state of consciousness where I'm not aware of the body at all. Now, how is that level of consciousness being explained? Because you can't describe it physically, you can't explain how it's produced by some physical causes. And another thing is daily experience. Every day we meet completely new experiences, completely new conversations. We make new jokes on, at the snap of a finger. To do this, we need some kind of intelligence. Intelligence is guiding us. Like if you just think, if you recite a nursery rhyme that you know well, or anything that you know well, how do you do that? You're immersed in the experience of reciting, but we don't know where that comes from. You remember your address, you remember your telephone number. Where's it coming from? Something is dictating it. You don't know where it comes from. Not only just information, but emotional states also. So, in the Vedic viewpoint, it's explained that the universal self, matasmriti jnana pohanangcha, from the universal self is coming, our conscious processes is guided by the universal self. Our memory, even our forgetfulness, our knowledge, everything, it's guided. And depending on our relationship with the universal self, that will affect how creative we can be, how competent we can be, and so on. So there's good evidence that the universal self is actually the basis of our individual consciousness.